Touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Rammer, jammer, yellow hammer, come see how we rock this. Alabama fans the best, there's no way you can top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
Hey everyone, it is Thursday, which means it is time for a new episode of The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I am your host, Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine. You guys can check me out every Tuesday and Thursday right here on our YouTube page on The Process. And on this episode, to close out this week of great shows, I want to talk about the Tide's 2021 recruiting class and analyze it a little bit, as I will give a grade to each position group that the Tide has verbally committed at the moment. But before I dive deeper into that segment, I want to hit you guys with a couple of recruiting updates as always. So with that being said, let's get the process started. Let's get these recruiting updates started with something that I discussed on Tuesday's show, which is 2022 prospects continuing to work through their recruitment despite COVID-19 impacting college football visits, as the Tide were included in a couple of top school lists recently. One of those lists came from 2022 four-star athlete Jacoby Matthews out of Louisiana, who released a top 7 and included the Tide. So Jacoby Matthews is another guy to pay attention to when it comes to the Tide recruiting the state of Louisiana in each recruiting class. Another guy who released a top school list recently was Gunnar Givens, a 5-star offensive tackle in the 2022 recruiting class, one of the top offensive linemen in this class, who released a top 6 recently and included the Tide as well. So Gunnar Givens and Jacoby Matthews are a couple of guys to pay attention to here in this 2022 recruiting class, which is sure to be a pretty interesting class, as those guys have not been able to visit any schools over the last couple of months, but they may get a chance after January 1st, with the recruiting dead period expected to possibly come to an end, but it's kind of hard to say at the moment. It could be extended further out, which is something that has happened over the last couple of months, with it currently being extended through January 1st. So something just to pay attention to with 2022 prospects. And speaking of recruits in the 2022 recruiting class, Tide recently offered in-state 2022 4-star athlete Sheamar James, who I got a chance to catch up with recently and talk about the Tide. He actually told me that he felt the Crimson Tide was possibly the greatest dynasty of all time. And when you look at James, he is a pretty impressive prospect that's 6'3" and 200 pounds, plays on offense and defense for Faith Academy High School in Mobile, Alabama. I really like what I saw from Sheamar James off the edge when I looked at his film, which is something the Tide's outside linebacker coach Sal Sinceri told him he really liked about his game as well. So be sure to check out our article and our interview with Sheamar James over at touchdowналabama.com. So those are the couple of recruiting updates I wanted to provide you guys with today. Now I am going to roll into grading the Tide's position groups in the 2021 recruiting class. Now it's time to give out some grades to the Tide's 2021 commits, starting with the Tide's 4-star quarterback commit Jaylen Miro out of Tompkins High School in Katy, Texas. This is a kid who is a dual threat quarterback, a mobile signal caller who has the ability to make plays with his feet, but he is not looking to do that. He is not looking to run the football. He is looking to extend the play and make plays down the field with his arm. When I got an opportunity to talk with the head coach of Tompkins High School, he told me that Jaylen Miro is looking to extend plays like Patrick Mahomes, like Lamar Jackson, trying to model those new age quarterbacks and use his feet not really to make plays down the field, although he can break free with his feet and with his running ability, but be a true signal caller and make plays down the field with his arms. Just use his legs and his feet to extend plays. He is a patient player in the pocket, which is one of the most impressive things about his game. With his commitment, I give the Tide's quarterback group here a B+ because I think Jaylen Miro is a special talent. If the Tide is able to sign him, which I think they will be able to, and Steve Sarkisian happens to stick around, although that may not be likely the way he's calling the Tide's offense over the last couple of years, it is going to be hard for Alabama to keep Steve Sarkisian in town for a very long time. But we look at Jaylen Miro and the way he develops, I think it'll be interesting to see how Steve Sarkisian can design a offense around Jaylen Miro. The next position group I want to take a look at is the tight end position, as the Tide currently has one tight end committed in Robbie Ouzts, a 3-star tight end out of South Carolina. This is a guy who has some natural athleticism to him. It is underrated in my mind as he plays both football and basketball for Rock Hill High School. This guy can dunk the basketball on the hardwood, so you can tell he has a nice vertical on him at 6'4". He is also an aggressive blocker, a guy who really seems to embrace contact. I'm pretty sure the Tides coaching staff really likes that about him because they like to use the tight ends as extra blockers on occasions, but they also like to use their tight ends in the passing game, especially under their offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian. I think Robbie Ouzts has all the talent and all the tools to develop into a great talent at the tight end position in Tuscaloosa. Technically, the Tide has 2 tight end commits when we look at Caden Clark being signed with the Tide, as he signed in the 2020 recruiting class, but he took a gray shirt. He would join the Tide's 2021 recruiting class with Robbie Ouzts, so there's something to pay attention to as well. And when we look at Caden Clark, he's a guy who has experience playing tight end, lining up wide, a guy who has experience blocking from the tight end position as well. I think he is a more developed route runner than Robbie Ouzts is, but Caden Clark also has to develop some more as well. So when we look at the Tide's 2021 recruiting class, I would give the tight end position a B-. I think this can go up because I feel that Robbie Ouzts has had an impressive senior season, as he is on the ballot to be one of the finalists for the Mr. Football Award inside the state of South Carolina. So I think he has had an impressive senior season. I am interested in seeing his senior highlights to see what exactly did he do during his senior season in South Carolina before I make that bump up to a B or possibly a B+ for the Tides tight end group. But at the moment, I will give them a B- because I want to see Robbie Ouzts turn into a more all-around tight end, which is something we see a lot at the college football level today. We are going to widen it out here to the Tides wide receiver group, and I am going to tell you guys right off the top that I am going to give this group an A because this is a pretty impressive group that the Tide has verbally committed at the moment when it comes to the wide receiver position. You have 3 talented guys from the state of Florida, starting with A.J. Hall, who we have listed as a 5-star recruit over at touchdownalabama.com in our own independent recruiting rankings. And when you look at Hall, he's an aggressive wide receiver. If I had to describe his game in one word, I would say he's a hustler on the field. He really likes to be aggressive. He really likes to work hard. You can tell, and it shows on all of his plays all over the field. So A.J. Hall, a great pickup at 6'3", a guy who's lengthy, a guy who's aggressive, a guy who plays loose. I really like a lot about A.J. Hall's game, so he's a great pickup for the Tides wide receiver position. You also have Christian Leary, the speedy guy off the pack, one of the fastest guys in the nation in the 2021 recruiting class. He once said he ran a 4.3 in a 40-yard dash, has a compact frame, has worked on his route running during his senior season. I got a chance to see him in action earlier this year. I was impressed with his route running. You can tell he has put in some work there. And when I got a chance to speak actually with a trainer, TJ Brown of Top Chef Academy at wide receiver school, TJ Brown trains NFL wide receivers when it comes to Miko Hardman, former Alabama wide receiver. Calvin Ridley has also spent some time with the Tide's current wide receiver in Javon Baker. So you can tell this guy has some experience with working with wide receivers. He actually got an opportunity to work with Christian Leary before the season started. He told Leary that with you being that fast, you don't have to do your routes at 100%. You can relax a little bit more and still run your routes as fast as some other guys because you are so explosive and because you are so fast, so your routes can be under control. And you can tell that Christian Leary took that advice in and has been working on his routes. So this is a guy who destroys angles in the open field with that amazing speed, plays all over the field for Edgewater High School, including at Wildcat quarterback. At times when I got a chance to talk with the head coach of Edgewater High School after Christian Leary committed, he told me that Leary is a very high IQ player, a guy who plays all over the field for them. He knows every position on the offensive side of the football, it seems. So Christian Leary, another great pickup, along with Ja'Cory Brooks. I think Ja'Cory Brooks, the 4-star wide receiver who currently plays for IMG Academy, is the most pro-ready of the group because of his route running. He is definitely the best route runner of the group in my opinion. This kid with a wide catch radius, a guy who plays with a lot of confidence. I really like a lot about Ja'Cory Brooks as well. So I'll give this group an A because this group is very, very good. Now we are going to go to the big men up front, the offensive line, as the Tide have quite possibly the best offensive line class ever verbally committed, which means this is easily an A+ offensive line, starting with the tackles that the Tide have verbally committed. When you look at J.C. Latham and Tommy Brackenmeyer, two guys who could quite possibly be first-round draft picks in the future. When you look at Tommy Brackenmeyer and his brother James Brackenmeyer, who the Tide have a verbal commitment from as well. These are two guys who are getting trained by the best when it comes to their dad, Blake Brackenmeyer, who is a former NFL offensive lineman. He is actually the offensive line coach for All Saints Episcopal School for this season, as James and Tommy are working under their father. And when I got a chance to talk with Blake, he always says that he is training both guys as NFL offensive linemen already, so they are ready to go in and adjust to the college football life pretty easily when it comes to offensive linemen. So James Brackenmeyer and Tommy Brackenmeyer look to be ready for the D1 college football level already. Add in J.C. Latham, who looks to be ready as well because he plays for IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, which means he's going up against some of the top talent in the nation. He has an opportunity to be coached by some very talented coaches as well. J.C. Latham, a guy with great size, great agility, a guy who really has some athleticism for a guy his size. I really like a lot about J.C. Latham as well, along with Terrence Ferguson, a 4-star offensive lineman out of Peach County High School in Georgia, a guy who's versatile, who could play guard at the next level, which is where I think he will most likely play, but he could possibly develop into an offensive tackle as well, as Peach County High School likes to use him all over the offensive line. So I think the Tide's offensive line haul is currently an A+ offensive line. Now it is time to flip over to the defensive side of the football and look at the defensive line, as the Tide currently have a trio of defensive tackles committed in Anquin Barnes, a 3-star defensive tackle out of Lee Montgomery High School in Montgomery, Alabama. They have Tim Keenan III out of Ramsey High School in Birmingham, Alabama, along with the 5-star defensive tackle in Damon Payne out of Belleville High School in Belleville, Michigan. I am also going to add the Tide's 4-star defensive end commit, Monica Goodwine, along with the Tide's outside linebacker and defensive end commit when it comes to Dallas Turner. I would just put Dallas Turner in this mix because I think he's going to be an edge rusher. Although he'll be listed as an outside linebacker, it's more of a defensive end edge rusher type of position when it comes to the Tide's defense. So I'll put him in this mix as well. And when you look at this position group from top to bottom, it is pretty impressive because you have Damon Payne at the top along with Dallas Turner. You look at Payne, he is a very gifted athlete, a guy who moves very well for a guy his size, has a very impressive jump off the football. He has the skill set to make an immediate impact at the next level, along with Dallas Turner, a long, lengthy kid, guy with a great jump off the snap as well, a guy who can play sideline to sideline, a athletic kid who has a basketball background. So when we look at the top of the Tide's defensive line group, you have a lot of talent there. Then you have Monkel Goodwine and Tim Keenan III filling out the middle with Anquin Barnes rounding out this class. When you look at the bottom, when you look at Anquin Barnes and Tim Keenan III, I think those are two guys who will need to develop a little bit more before they can make an impact, especially now with Tim Keenan III actually suffering a high school career-ending injury during Ramsey's the second to last game of the season. So that is something to pay attention to, as well as Tim Keenan III and Anquin Barnes, two guys who may need to develop a little bit before they can make that impact at the next level. But you also have that top talent at the top of this group, which is why I give this position group a B+ at the moment. I think by the time the Tide ends this 2021 recruiting class, this group will easily be an A group, because I think they will possibly add 1 to 2 more defensive linemen in this 2021 recruiting class. Now moving to the defensive backfield for the Crimson Tide here in this 2021 recruiting class, as they have 3 inside linebackers verbally committed, guys who could possibly play inside linebacker when you look at Ian Jackson, Deontay Lawson, and also Kendrick Blackshear. Starting with Lawson, this is a guy who plays for Mobile Christian School in Mobile, Alabama. In my mind, he may just be the most ready of the 3 to come in and make an immediate impact. A guy with some great instincts, a guy with some great closing speed. At 6'3", he possesses some natural athleticism as well. So Deontay Lawson is a great pickup for the Tide when it comes to this linebacker position group, along with Ian Jackson, a 4-star linebacker out of Prattville High School in Prattville, Alabama. When he first committed to the Tide, I said this was a guy who could quite possibly play at all 3 levels on the defensive side of the football. When you look at outside linebacker, inside linebacker, and defensive back. But with them adding on some weight before his senior season, I think he has developed into more of an outside linebacker, inside linebacker prospect. This is a guy who's a leader for Prattville High School, a guy who really understands the big picture, because when I got a chance to see him in action earlier this season, you could tell that he understood what he did on each play and how it impacted the Prattville High School Lions defense as a whole. So I think he is a guy who could also come in and make an impact as well, possibly as a special teams player. So I think Ian Jackson is a true leader, a guy who could develop into a captain at the next level with the Crimson Tide. Then Kendrick Blackshear rounds out this group, a massive linebacker. He looks as if he was ready to play for Alabama yesterday, because he is just a massive guy with a massive frame, a guy who looks like he has bounced back from an ACL injury during his junior season to help Duncanville High School have a great season this year, as he is a senior for Duncanville. So when you look at this position group, I think it is a bit underrated. I don't think it is talked about as much, but at the moment I would give this group a A-. And if they add on Xavier Sori, I think this really bring forth this group, and I think it will really shine some light on how good this group really is. You technically can add Dallas Turner in this group as well, because he technically is an outside linebacker, but I will give this group an A-. We are going to round things out with the Tide's defensive back group, as the Tide currently have 5 recruits who are verbally committed, who are expected to play within the secondary at the next level, starting with Quincy Mckinstry, the 5-star athlete, the Tide's most recent commit, a guy with some natural ball skills, a guy who could easily play at the wide receiver position at the next level because of his natural athleticism, has a nice vertical, which has led him to get the opportunity, which has helped him get the opportunity to play football and basketball at the next level. He joins the likes of Kyrie Jackson, a technically sound JUCO defensive back who may be the most ready of this group because of that JUCO experience. A guy who really likes to make big hits on expecting wide receiver. A guy who attacks the football, does not attack the player. And I think that speaks to his experience and his IQ when it comes to the defensive back position. He is joined by other guys like Devontae Smith, who has the opportunity to play all over the secondary. The Tide's coaching staff has pitched a role similar to Minka Fitzpatrick to the Ohio native. He joins also Kane Williams, a 4-star defensive back out of Louisiana, a bigger body defensive back who's actually training to play all over the secondary for John Ehret High School during his senior season training to play closer to the line of scrimmage as well. So Kane Williams is another great pickup, along with Kadarius Callaway, who may be the most underrated player in the country. I got a chance to see him earlier in the season, and I was blown away, just blown away. Jaw-dropping performance. This is a guy who has elite open field speed. I think the moment he steps onto the campus of the University of Alabama, he will be fighting for the claim of the fastest guy on the team. He has great size at 6'1", 200 pounds plus. He is built like a running back. I think this is a guy, as I said, the most underrated player in the country. Another great pickup for the Tide. They are expected to play him at the cornerback position at the next level. When you look at this group, I would give this group an A grade. I think this is a solid defensive back group. Of course, the Tide are not done recruiting defensive backs. They may add another guy in Terrion Arnold in the future. And if they add Arnold with his ability to be a solid defensive back, I think he boosts this group up to an A+. That will put a bow on this episode of The Process. Before you leave, be sure to hit that subscribe button below. Then head over to touchdownalabama.com. Pick up your subscription today. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber-only articles. Get your hands on our yearly print magazine issue. Also read our in-depth draft projection for each Alabama player that is eligible to declare for the NFL draft in that given year. Also read our in-depth scouting reports on each Tide commit in each recruiting class. You can find all of that over at touchdownalabama.com. Then go to your app store, whether that is the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Be sure to download the Touchdown Alabama app so you can stay updated on all of our content with your mobile device. So breaking news notifications can be sent right to your mobile device, right there in your hand with the latest Touchdown Alabama app. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine.
Process.